Welcome, welcome, welcome. Right off the bat, I just want to set expectations for Mets fans. First of all, we have spring training that is among us right now, and we have pitchers, catchers reporting as we speak, and we have players next week reporting. So we have a lot of exciting times to come. But I'd like to set the expectation for Mets fans going forward, and this is as it relates to two important figures, David Stearns and Scott Boris. And I'm going to say that instant gratification isn't what David Stearns is all about. All right. That's what other GMs like Billy Epler and other GMs in the past, that's what they wanted. They wanted instant gratification. David Stearns is going to be looking to build this team differently. And it's been pretty evident when listening to the press conference and when really observing how this team is built. And I'm going to go over a couple reasons why. And I'm also going to talk about how this connects to Scott Boris and how this connects to us Met fans, because Met fans really care. Like, how does it affect us? How does it affect my team? That's what I care about. Okay. And then at the end of the day, how's my team going to put itself in a position to win a championship? That's what we want. Okay. So, as always, if you could help out the channel, like, subscribe, share our videos, really helps us out a lot. Set the alert so you know when we have new videos. It continues to help our channel grow. And honestly, I cannot thank you enough. I really can't. Okay, so let's really get into this. Let's look at the scenario right now where we see ourselves. Spring training is beginning. Pitchers and catchers are starting. We have David Stearns. He did the press conference yesterday. I want to get to some very important things that he said, how it's going to affect your team. But I want to talk about Scott Boris right now, momentarily. I mean, we're not going to talk about it that long, but I think it's very important. Scott Boris has four very huge clients right now on the market. We obviously know Scott Boris is Pete Alonso's agent. He's also JUAN Soto's agent. So this is why I find what's going on now very important in how it relates to our New York Mets. So Scott Boris represents obviously Cody Bellinger, JD Martinez, Blake Snell, and Jordan Montgomery. I'm pretty sure he has set a plan for those folks because those folks right now are without jobs. They are very talented. Blake Snell is coming off a Cy Young Award victory. Probably, you would think, perfect time to sign a contract right after you win the Cy Young Award. You figure the demand is off the wall. We already know Blake Snell has turned down a $150 million offer. I think it was for 7 years to go with the Yankees. Maybe it was a 5-year deal, but it was for $150 million in that range. Obviously, he turned that deal down because Boris said, hey, you can get more money. You can get more money. You just got to wait. Okay. So you have those four premier free agents. Now, we all know these players had flaws. They had flaws in the beginning of the offseason because it's not like we were clamoring over, oh, you got to sign Blake Snell. You got to sign Jordan Montgomery. In fact, based on the market, I was saying that it's not worth it to sign these guys. It's not worth it to give Blake Snell over $200 million. It's not worth it to give Jordan Montgomery this amount of money, $150, $200 million. It's just not worth it. Yamamoto, yes, it was worth it. I would take a chance on him. But these guys, it seems, maybe because of Boris, maybe Boris has really overvalued his clients as it relates to the current market. And other markets, maybe you would give a Cody Bellinger $200+ million and not think twice. But according to this market right now, it seems like Boris is asking for more money than teams are currently willing to overpay. At least overpay, like right now, not thinking. Right? So maybe, injuries occur and you have a Bellinger on the free agent market and you're like, hey, I want to give this guy a lot of money. Or Blake Snell, your top of the line rotation guy gets injured. Okay, yeah, maybe now I'll give Blake Snell $200 million. But right now, we see that Boris is really overvaluing his clients and most importantly, telling his clients to wait. Why am I saying this? Obviously, these aren't any of our players right now. I'm saying this right now is because I could foresee us Mets fans going through a pretty, I don't want to say painful, but I would say a pretty uncomfortable time. Right now, because I could see this happening. It happened a couple years ago with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, I think, was extended all the way until March when he signed with the Phillies, and he got that contract with the Phillies, and he got $325 million for 13 years, $25 million per year. And at the end of the day, they would clap hands, celebrate. And, I wasn't so impressed with that contract. I thought Bryce Harper could have got more. I thought he's worth more than a $25 million per year player. And I also thought that he was a type of player who probably should have got an opt-out in the first couple of years. And now you see what's ridiculous. You see now, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because now Scott Boris is going to learn from his mistakes. He made a mistake with the Bryce Harper contract. There was no opt-out. Right now, Bryce Harper wants to renegotiate. He has no goddamn leverage to renegotiate. He's got literally, I think, 8 or 9 years left with the Phillies. He signed till he's 38 years old, and right now he's saying, Phillies, we need to renegotiate. I would like to play my entire career here, and I want to play into my 40s. Okay, maybe we'll talk to you when you're 38. If you're still productive, we'll extend you then. No, he wants to renegotiate right now. Well, in my eyes, he signed a bad contract. He signed a bad contract with no opt-out for $25 million a year. Okay, yeah, it looked okay 3-4 years ago, but $25 million a year for a caliber player of Bryce Harper is a pretty reasonable contract. It's a pretty reasonable contract. It really is. Now, Bryce Harper had some injuries. He signed through another 8 years left in his contract. And why should the Phillies renegotiate? Why? Because they want to make sure he's happy. They don't have to renegotiate because Bryce Harper, quite honestly, has no leverage. Okay, the reason why I bring that up is because Scott Boris is going to want the world for Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is a premier slugger. Pete Alonso is doing things that not many people do, consistently averaging over 40, I think 45 home runs in the first 5 years of his career, probably hitting 110 RBIs or more, averaging, I'm not sure the exact amount, but he is a prodigious run producer. He is a slugger. He is something that Major League Baseball really hasn't really seen since really the late 90s, the mid 90s. A guy who you really can count on for 40 plus home runs and 110 plus RBIs a year. Really, look through Major League Baseball. There's not another guy who has done this over a 4 or 5 year span like Pete Alonso. And if he puts up a mammoth year this year, really, the sky's the limit that Boris is going to ask for. The sky's the limit. So Boris is learning from mistakes. So you're probably going to have to give a very sizable contract to Pete. You're going to have to probably give Pete a bunch of opt-outs, at least one. You're probably going to have to do things that David Stearns is not willing to do. There are teams out there, you hear the Cubs, you potentially hear the Yankees, especially if they lose a guy like JUAN SOTO, that may be willing to pay the Scott Boris price. Now, I listened to the David Stearns press conference, and I hear things like cycles. He's talking about cycles. What cycle is the team in? Are we in the beginning stations? Are we growing and developing our players? Are we learning about our players? And that seems to be the cycle. David Stearns is saying that he going to be able to make an educated decision about the team and players in the future. Not now. He is quite honest and quite open about saying that he does not know the right decisions right now. He needs more time. He has said that the whole first year is going to be learning about the franchise, learning about the players, being more educated so that he can make the best decision for the future. Really. So we have to set and temper our expectations based upon what David Stearns is telling us. Now, that doesn't mean to say that, hey, it's not World Series or bust, because I'm still all World Series. I heard Steve Cohen, and Steve Cohen promised us a World Series. They asked David Stearns about that. What are your goals? And this is what I didn't really like. David Stearns responded by saying, our goal is to be one of those teams that competes for a playoff spot. Compete for a playoff spot. That's your goal, to compete, not be a playoff team. There are 6 positions, and that is your goal. And then he kind of like minced words and said, oh no, our goal is still to be a championship caliber team to win the World Series. Yes, we're not going to go off that goal, but then he kept going, okay, we are going to be a playoff team and compete for playoffs. So he kept going back to his main point about how he sees our team as being a team that competes. At some point, will we convert or build our team up into that championship team? I think that is the outcome, but the expectation from David Stearns, as this team is currently constituted, that we are constructed to compete for a playoff spot. Now, that is not what I want. My goal is championship. World Series. I haven't seen one in my lifetime. I want to see a World Series. Steve Cohen buying this team a couple years ago guaranteed us that goal, that promise. Okay, now what do I feel about David Stearns? Kind of like like his philosophy. You know what? I don't really know, because all I know is that the instant gratification, Billy Epler and the other GMs of the past has not worked. Now, it was asked, based on your competition, you have the Braves, you have the Phillies. Do you see yourself as like, a superior team or being better than those teams? He clearly said no. The exterior thought is that those teams, based on their performance, are obviously better right now. So that's why he probably, and he didn't say it in words, but he was insinuating that we're going to be competing for a wild card spot based upon that. Okay. Now, I, based on the press conference, Stearns has basically been assured that he's going to be here a long time, because that's how he kind of spoke. He kind of spoke that this whole year, probably 1 or 2 years, is going to be learning and developing the team, getting to know what you have on your roster, and then once you know what you have, once you see what the youngsters, the Vientos, the Beatties, and everybody in the minor leagues, anybody that you think can impact the major league roster, once you know what you got, then you can make a move. Once you see how all the pieces fit, then you can make a move. So we all, even though we want to win this year, David Stearns is telling us what's his plan. His plan is to get to know the guys, and then he can make a decision. All right. And it seems like this guy is at least going to be here. David Stearns is going to be here for 5 years, because if you figure he's going to at least use 12 months to get to know the organization, basically the observing is probably going to be 1 to 2 years. Then we might start seeing a little more action, and that's what we saw in Milwaukee. He took over, and I believe 2015, 2016 was his first year running the organization. Then he started making aggressive moves. I believe the Yelich acquisition, I think that was 2018, late 2017, but it was basically a year to 2 years after he took over the organization. As this relates to Pete Alonso, and we all bring it back to how it affects us, based on where we are next year, cycle-wise, because it looks like David Stearns looks at the organization as stages, how we grow. And depending on where we are next year when Pete Alonso is a free agent, David Stearns will put a value on Pete. How much is this how much is Pete Alonso value to the Mets based on where the Mets are in that time? And if we're still a team that is in a growth stage, Pete Alonso is not going to be worth paying $30+ million to a team that is in a growth stage. A guy who's already in his 30s, a guy who is basically, you plug him into a team that's ready to win now. Now, if Stearns figures we're not ready to win for another 3-4 years, it doesn't really make sense to give a guy $30+ million for 3 or 4 years to a team that's not ready to win until 27, 28. So we really got to see how David Stearns is going to view this team in another couple months. What he does at the trade deadline is going to be extremely fascinating. How he acts, how he acquires players, how he makes trades is going to be extremely telling. But my summation and what I would have to guess, based upon the information I have in front of me, based upon how Scott Boris is trying to get every last penny out of these teams, I think Stearns has a value for these players. I think Stearns has a vision for this team, how he views the team right now, and how he thinks adding a guy making 35, maybe $40 million, depending on how much Scott Boris extracts. I don't think Stearns would value Pete Alonso on this team right now. If Pete Alonso was that like kind of like last piece, yeah, or if Pete Alonso was 4 or 5 years younger, it's a whole different conversation. But you have to value and look at Pete for what he is right now. If he's a guy who can hit 50 home runs, knocking 120 RBIs, and he's going to be 30, 31 years old, by the time you're ready to win, he's 34, 35. And maybe it's not worth it to make that deal. And I think Stearns is not going to make a decision with his heart. He's going to make a decision with his head. Us fans, it's not our job to think things through logically. Can we? Yeah, there's a lot of smart Mets fans, but it's more with our heart. That's how we look at things. I mean, I try to look at things both. Sometimes I view something only with my heart, but a lot of times it's good to take a step back and put things in perspective and with reason and with logic. And and right now, what's going on with Boris and his clients? Right now, they're holding out for every last penny. Montgomery, Snell could have signed. I'm sure Montgomery could have signed. I'm sure Bellinger couldn't sign. I'm sure Martinez could have signed. But these guys aren't looking to just sign. They're looking to make every last penny. They are going to make every last penny. And at the end of the day, maybe Stearns doesn't value giving a first baseman who's going into his 30s $40 million. Maybe he values a guy like Soto, giving him $40 million. So it doesn't mean necessarily that Stearns isn't ready to give a guy $40 million. It's just meaning that he doesn't value that specific guy going to his 30s playing first base. So we really just have to wait and see. Plus, you never know. Like a guy like Vientos, he might blow things out of the water, and that might be your future first baseman, and it might make all the sense in the world plugging him in. So at the end of the day, is we have to see what we have, and it's going to be interesting because we're dealing with a lot of different X factors, and I'm just going to be excited to see how things go. And I'm sorry this video was a kind of a little all over the place, but there's a lot of things going on right now. If you can subscribe, let me know what your opinions are. What's the Boris factor? Do you think that's gonna, prohibit the Mets from signing him? Do you think the Mets are going to sign him? Do you think the Mets are going to trade Pete? What is going on with Pete Alonso's future? And or do you think the Mets are going to completely go in a different direction? It's all going to be interesting, and we will see. We will follow everything. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let's go Mets, and I will speak to you very, very soon.